Good morning. This is March 29th, 2012. Video blog entry for freeyourselffromyourself.com. And I know that I reiterate at the beginning of every one of these videos that this is just an ongoing diary, if you will, about the ways in which I try and incorporate the 8 steps in this particular program, for lack of a better word, to try and not sabotage my own life. And when I say sabotage, I mean not undermine my own success in life by doing things or thinking things or acting upon misperceptions that end up hurting me in the end. So, one of my patterns in life is that if I see people with whom I work or with whom I'm involved in some kind of a work or athletic or some kind of an activity, talking amongst themselves and I'm not part of that conversation, my tendency is to think that they're talking about me. Now, where does this come from? This partial, and then of course, oftentimes when I was younger and less self-reflective, I might act upon that perception. Okay, so where does this kind of narcissism, this sense that like the world is talking about me come from? Well, it comes from when I was little. I had a sister who was littler. I was 8, she was 3, and she was dying of cancer. And there was a lot of whispering and talking going on. And I think that I very much knew or sensed that it was about me and how I was going to deal with this particular situation. There was a lot of secretness. There was a lot of conversation going on that was outside of earshot, but that I sensed, I guess, was about me. In any event, that was when I was a child. 7, 8 years old. I'm now almost 50 years old. And regardless of the fact that those are old maps, old perceptions, old ways of seeing the world and of acting, that tendency to still think that when there is conversation going on or whispering going on, it must be about me, can be very powerful. I'll give you a couple of examples. When I moved back from Oklahoma City to Vermont last June of 2011, I was in the process, my ex-wife and I, then we were legally separated, but we were moving, we were moving apart, and I had worked in Oklahoma City for the year teaching and coaching soccer. And when I moved back, she was moving out of the house that we had lived in together for a long time and was moving into a new house that her mom had purchased. And she was involved with a new man, and they were, obviously, I didn't know about it when I was in Oklahoma City, but obviously there was a seriousness about it. So, which is fine, whatever. But there were lots of conversations going on when I first moved back because I didn't have any, I had rented a room somewhere, but I hadn't moved in yet. So I came back and I was sleeping on the couch in the house in which I had lived for many years. But I could see conversations going on outside between my soon-to-be ex-wife and her mom. And I immediately assumed that those conversations were about me, about how I shouldn't be in the house, and what happens is, of course, then I start to believe those perceptions. Now, those conversations may have had nothing to do about me. They may have had to do about the kids. They may have had to do about something going on with my ex-wife's, her dad had passed away, and something going on with, the estate of her father. I don't know, but I assumed, based upon my perceptions, that it was about me. And then, at one point, I acted upon that. I was like, you guys don't need to talk behind my back. Like that kind of a thing. And, of course, her response was, we weren't talking about you. When I perceive that people are talking about me based upon these old maps, these old ways of viewing the world, these old ways of existing, of thinking, and I act upon that, I sabotage myself. I undermine my own success. In stating to my soon-to-be ex-wife that, oh, you don't have to talk about me behind my back, I was assuming that that's what the conversation was. And, of course, then that's very self-sabotaging to make that pronouncement, because then she is puzzled that I'm making this pronouncement, and it causes friction, and it causes tension, and things escalate, and it's about these thoughts that I'm thinking that don't necessarily have anything to do with what's really going on. Another example, I work now as a full-time soccer coach, but when I worked as a teacher, when I was a teacher in schools, and there would be conversations going on between administrators behind closed doors while I was sitting in the office waiting to go in, I just assumed those conversations were about me, something I had done wrong. What had I done? And I was racking my brain, what have I done wrong? It immediately puts me in a defensive mode. Now, those conversations may have had nothing to do with me, but because when I was young, I perceived conversations happening about me and that I acted upon those things, which makes sense for a young person trying to protect themselves from a confusing and at times hostile or dangerous world, dangerous in the sense of how do I protect my ego, how do I protect myself. When you're an adult and you're continuing, if one continues to act upon those misperceptions, those thoughts that are faulty and not true, one ends up, and for me, in my case, I end up undermining my own success and my own happiness because I act upon these misperceptions. Oh, I've rambled on here a little bit this morning, but I just wanted to check in on the video blog and say, step number 1, don't believe everything you think. It's really important for me to always take a step back and say, these are old patterns of thinking that I used when I was little to protect myself, but now that I'm a grown man, A, I don't need to use those thoughts to protect myself, and B, oftentimes, way more often than not, what I'm thinking is not necessarily what's really going on. When I'm thinking that my ex-wife and her mom are having a conversation about me because there's whispering going on, it may have nothing to do with me. It may have just be something that they want to share between themselves, but it's nothing to do with me. So, really, I think I keep coming back to probably the most important of all of these steps in this 8-step process, of all of these practices, is number 1, don't believe everything you think. Anyway, that's all I've got this morning. Hope you have a great week or 2 weeks or whatever, and I'll check in soon. Bye.